you so very much. Okay, well, with no further ado and respecting your time, uh, everybody's time, Renee, it's wonderful to have you here with us. Thank you so very much for connecting. It's been wonderful to have these meetings across the sea and across the miles. So, Jim, would you like to introduce? uh, Renee, since you are very much acquainted, much more than I am with him.
Well, thank you. Renee, as I included at the email I sent with you, was hosted by the Celina Rotary Club as a Rotary Youth Exchange Student in 1994-95. And he stayed with the Gatemans and the Ingrams, and we're very fortunate to have Susan Ingram and I'm sorry, your daughter's name is
Alan.
Alan.
Emily.
Alan is with us.
Emily.
Emily?
Emily.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
yeah, great. And for the past 6 years, Renee's been a member of our Pathways Rotary Club. I reached out to him with another group of members that were past youth exchange members that had spent time in our district, and so he's done very well in Rotary, and I know it's become a big part of his life. Renee grew up in East Germany, the German Democratic Republic. And you remember under the communist regime of East Germany, GDR, independent civic organizations like Rotary were not permitted. So Rotary clubs did not operate there and after World War II until the fall of the Berlin Wall on November 9th. Remember that? 1990, and Rotary clubs started to officially begin in 1990. And immediately following that, and Renee was the first Rotary Youth Exchange student from East Germany who came to Rotary District 6600. As sort of a side, our nephew happened to be one of the first, at the same time, Americans to go to East Germany as a exchange student from the United States to Germany. Sue and I were on the district committee at that time. We went to several meetings and spent many weekends with Rene and his group, and I'll talk about that perhaps later when we have some discussion time. Rene has a lovely family, wife, daughter, son, and like you, I've been looking forward to hearing all about what exactly Rene does for a living in Germany and more about his life in Germany. Rene, take it away.
Thanks, Jim. Well, that's basically all I wanted to say. So let's start the discussion right away. No. Yeah. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm not sure if there's anyone in my time zone here from Africa or Europe. Don't think so, right? So it's in the morning for you guys. It's 3 o'clock over here. I'm just about done with work. As I said, working from home, so I have to do laundry and all these typical things that you do at home. Um, but first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I hope you can see my slide. I started a presentation. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. I just thought I supported with a few images and text so you can listen and look at it. It feels a bit surreal to be here, to be honest, because more than 30 years ago, I arrived in Ohio as German Rotary Exchange student, trying to understand American football, refillable soft drinks, and why ordering a burger in America somehow required 15 decisions. And at that time, almost everything just felt new and different to me. And um, that was probably also the exciting part of coming over. And yes, I still get a little nervous speaking in front of Rotary members today. So apparently some things never change. Um, I'm very grateful to be here, especially to Jim. Thank you for the invitation, the encouragement to do this, and for reconnecting me with the Celina Rotary Club again after all these years. We spoke slightly about it when I met Susie and Jeff just a few months ago. So yeah, there's still contact, and it's great to see you here. So as I said, I brought a few slides to go along with the speech. My life and career in Germany sounds pretty serious and professional, but don't worry, it's not going to be a TED talk about productivity or anything. So it's rather going to be a story about opportunity, timing, curiosity, the incredible long-term impact people can have on each other's lives. And yeah, before talking about the past, maybe let me briefly show you where life eventually led me to, even though Jim already started doing that. So this is my life today. I live in southwest of Germany with my wife Chrissy and our two children, Philip and Paulina. And yes, both are now officially at the age where they know everything better than their parents. So apparently my leadership experience at work was excellent preparation for being ignored at home. Um, so, yeah, professionally, I work in the tech industry in product management of email and cloud services, which basically means every day I help people that complain about forgetting passwords. Um, yeah, interestingly though, this whole story really started long before my professional life. And this slide really means a lot to me. The newspaper clipping that you see here is from 1994. I admit it's AI built, but the picture itself is a real one. So you see me there at the age of 17, standing in front of the Rotary Club in Ohio. The guy on the right is Jim Gatesman, the first host father I stayed with. I was trying my best English, and I talked about Germany, probably a lot about East Germany and what it looks like at that time. Um, Honestly, at that moment, I could have never imagined that I would do that again more than 30 years later. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Rotary. You often don't realize the long-term impact of something while it's really happening. So sometimes a single exchange year just becomes a lifelong influence. Yeah, but to really understand why this exchange year became so important to me, we probably have to go back a little further. Um, Chapter one, basically, my childhood is not me. It's the blonde little guy there. The early years, I would call it. It's not like the LinkedIn version you would see of someone's life. It's more a real version. So it's about my first business venture, about soccer, about slowly learning responsibility, often without realizing at that time. And you know, some great business careers start rather awkward, and mine apparently started in waste management. So my first business model was actually garbage, very sustainable, very German. In East Germany, recycling was serious business. You could
Hi
return bottles.
guys.
Hello. You could return bottles, paper, glass, and earn money with it. So as a child, I became highly entrepreneurial. I optimized the routes. I identified households with high consumption patterns, which kind of sounds impressive today, but really meant I knew exactly which neighbors drank the most beer. Yeah, honestly, looking back, it taught me something surprisingly important, seeing value where others don't. Yeah, so recycling was only one part of my childhood. Obviously, one of my probably the biggest part of my youth was soccer. Not just a hobby, it was just really a second home, I would call it. So we had practice several times a week, matches on the weekends, club events, friendships, responsibility. And at some point in time, I also became team treasurer, which meant I learned early people suddenly become very interested in financial transparency when it's their money. Yeah, but the important part was trust. So responsibility feels different when it comes from people you care about. Um, yeah, and while my world was stable as a child, the horizon around us was still relatively limited. So what was really ahead of me at that time? So life in East Germany, pretty much meant narrow horizons. I was born in 1976, so during most of my childhood, life paths felt relatively predefined. Education opportunities existed, but they were more limited. They were more political. They were less international, if at all. And you didn't really grow up with something like maybe I can study abroad in New York one day. That was simply not the reality. Um, yeah, and then suddenly everything changed. I was 13 years old, November 9th, 1989. And I think a lot of people still know where exactly they have been at that time. It's probably something like 9/11. Everybody knows where he has been. And for us, this was not just a political event. It completely changed the size of our future. And with that, life changed almost overnight. So all of a sudden, the horizon became much larger. There was freedom to travel. There was freedom to choose, freedom to study, freedom to fail, to try again. And maybe most importantly, the feeling that your future was no longer predetermined. Um, yeah, and I think if you look at it, people who always lived with freedom sometimes just underestimate how powerful that feeling is. Yeah. So let's take a look at the changes. And one of the biggest was definitely education and opportunity. So before Germany reunited, opportunities were much more controlled. And after that, suddenly the system opened completely. And for my generation, this was both exciting and overwhelming. Why is that? Because suddenly, there were so many choices that we could take. So study at university, apprenticeship, military service, doing international exchange, create your own business, learn new languages. And nobody in East Germany really had experience navigating all these possibilities yet. Since, for decades, many of these paths just simply didn't exist in that way. Yeah, so for many of us, the 1990s were a period of enormous opportunity, I would call it, and at the same time, enormous orientation. Yeah, so now before my own path became slightly chaotic, it probably helps to briefly understand how the German education system works. Yeah, pretty much a straight line. It's a bit similar to the US. So you start with elementary school. Best case, you go to academic high school and get your exam at the age of 18 or 19. In Germany, in my school, we had to do 13 years to graduate, and yeah, then usually start university or do some kind of vocational training. Yeah, so the structure is relatively clear and organized, just like we Germans are, I guess. But what became really complicated after reunification was that not really the system itself, but like I said, the explosion of all the possibilities that we had. So suddenly there wasn't just one expected path anymore. And yeah, while the system itself was relatively structured and my own path definitely wasn't. So take it to the next one. That was basically my education path. A bit less linear, I guess. Sometimes I joke that I sampled almost every available option that I could get. So I did the exchange year in the US. I went to military service. I did a banking apprenticeship. I did university studies. I studied again abroad. And believe me, I often wondered, am I taking a bit too long here? Am I 10 years older than everyone else in the US when I was there, studying business and PR? But today I see it a bit differently. I think many people, especially from East Germany, wanted to use opportunities that all these previous generations never had access to. And yeah, when I think about it, when the world suddenly opens after decades of limitation, then you just want to explore everything you get. And that's pretty much what I did. Yeah, so anyhow, somewhere along that journey, I eventually finished high school in Germany. Um, this slide here shows my high school. Actually quite neat. There's an old building renovated. The other one is after doing the final exam. So very serious atmosphere, formal certificates, not much laughing, very straightforward. Yeah, so graduating after reunification felt very different than it would have been just a few years earlier, of course. Everything felt so much open to us. Yeah, in parallel to my German education, another really important chapter was happening in the US actually. Um, and yeah, so this is my graduation in Celina. That's the old school building. I think the new one has opened. I'm not sure. At least they were building it. Still on the way. Okay. Yeah, that's me, cap and gown, and the beautiful family with Jeff and Susie, Emily, Elizabeth. Um, yeah, it was just an experience that was incredibly important for me, not just because of the language or the education, but because it changed my confidence. For the first time, I realized I could function internationally. I could adapt. I could belong somewhere completely unfamiliar. Um, but besides that, the much bigger education was just outside the classroom. So the exchange year 94, 95 was just more than just changing my address. It changed how I saw myself. When you're 17 years old and suddenly live in another country, you can't just hide behind familiarity anymore. You learn independence very quickly. You learn adaptability, you learn openness, and you learn that people are kind almost everywhere. And I also learned that Americans are much better at small talk than Germans. So German conversation begins after 45 minutes. An American conversation begins, while standing in line for ketchup. Uh, yeah, just so many things that I was able to see and experience myself. They were just uh, such a great value. And yeah, I'll just always be deeply grateful to Rotary, to my host families, the Gatesmans, the Ingrams, the teachers, and everyone involved. Because just, exchange programs don't just create memories, they create confidence, perspective, identity. And, like with me, I guess sometimes just shape an entire life. Right. So with this, eventually, in Germany, life continued. I had to do my military service, and that's not AI generated, that's really me. So one with my uniform that, show when you present, the other one in the forest, uh, doing stupid things. But yeah, after graduating, I had to do the service for 1 year. So I spent 1 year in Germany in the military. And honestly, after German and American high school life, this was a slight change of the atmosphere. It taught discipline, structure, resilience, and also how little sleep a human being can actually survive on. Right. Yeah, so after military service, actually, life became a bit more practical. I entered a banking apprenticeship in Berlin. Germany has a very strong vocational education system where you combine practical work and classroom education. And this experience gave me something extremely valuable, practical business fundamentals, finance, structure, responsibility, customer interaction, and surprisingly, many things I learned there will help me today. Yeah, and somehow the international side kept pulling me back. So I went back to study in the US, attended did one semester at the State University of New York in New Paltz. So one American experience was apparently not enough for me. It just felt a bit different by then. At 17, exchange feels like an adventure, and at 27, it becomes more perspective. And I see Susie already looking at the pictures in detail. Yes, I was partying a lot. Yeah. Yeah, but still, the experience strengthened something that had already started doing Rotary, the feeling that international environments just feel very natural to me. And another thing during that period, New York also created another unexpected opportunity for me. And that is definitely one of the more surreal moments in my student years. I was able to do an internship with the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden. For a kid growing up in East Germany, working inside of one of the most famous sports arenas in the world was just awesome. And yeah, unpredictable for me, and something that was really a great experience. And it reinforced something important, that sometimes opportunities only become imaginable after you've already taken the first step. Um, yeah. Eventually, after quite a few stops along the way, I finally finished university. So I got a degree in business management in Germany. I was studying at two universities, actually, the Free University of Berlin and the John F. Kennedy Institute for North America Studies. You see here our great library and the Henry Ford building on the bottom. The university I attended in Berlin is very much linked to the US, as the part where it sits is had been occupied by the US back then. So as some of you know, Berlin had like four sections: the Russians, the French, the English, and the Americans. So there's still great connections there to the US at the university. Right. So next chapter, turning all that experience into career. So after all these experience, the question became, what do I actually do with all of this? And I just knew one thing. I didn't want a very narrow career path. I like connecting people, ideas, strategy, communication, execution. And around that time, my wife and I moved from Berlin to Southwest Germany, which became the beginning of an entirely new chapter. So when I entered professional life, I didn't feel like a typical graduate. I had a few things that I brought with me. So I knew what team experience means. I had an international exposure. I had financial basics, organizational responsibility, and a very strong interest in communication and people. Um, and yeah, honestly, I wasn't entirely sure where all of this would fit. But luckily, the first convincing answer appeared, and I got a first role as partnership manager in a very big German energy company. And interestingly, this role combined many things I had built on along the way. So marketing, partnerships, events, customer engagement, communication, and all that. And I realized pretty quickly that I really enjoyed building those bridges between people, business, goals, and execution. Yeah, so I did that for a few years, and something interesting happened. I shifted my role from external partnerships toward a more internal transformation work, which sounds less exciting, but was actually incredibly interesting. The challenge became more, how do I translate complexity into something practical and understandable? And yeah, to be honest, this is still a big part of what I do today. But again, the international side of my story returned. I changed places again. I didn't move to the US, but I had to deal with lots of out of German topics. I joined a company called Ionos, one of the leading companies for digital transformation in Europe. Yeah, they were looking for a business developer for international markets, and yeah, started there and worked in different areas, held different positions with responsibilities across multiple countries and markets. So US was a big one, UK, for instance, Spain. And I kind of noticed something that all these early experiences that I had, like Rotary, living abroad, adaptation, communication across cultures, just suddenly became professionally useful. And like I said, sometimes life connects the dots much later. You just have to be a bit patient. Yeah, over time, the responsibility became broader. I moved into a new responsibility for our international brand, mail.com. It's offering email and cloud services. And for the first time, I wasn't just responsible for one function anymore, but for the whole picture, basically. So product marketing, customer care, monetization, growth. And yeah, that was all exciting and honestly also occasionally very terrifying to have that responsibility for all these sections. Yeah, but I love the combination of strategy and execution, and this eventually led me to what I do today. And that is, I work as head of product operations. It's a rather modern discipline, rather new in product management that basically means helping large organizations to stay aligned and functional while everything constantly changes. Or to put in other words, connecting teams, prioritizing work, improving execution, reducing chaos, and just trying to keep complexity manageable. Yeah, so essentially, professional adult coordination, if you want to call it that. With all of this, of course, this is only one half of the story. While careers grow publicly, life happens privately. So while all these professional chapters were unfolding, another story was developing in parallel, and that is obviously my family. This became truly the more important story to me. Yeah, it's a very important slide for me personally. My wife Christy has been beside me through every chapter, moves, career changes, uncertainty, stress, success, all of it. We built our own home in this little village here in Southwest Germany and filled it with two beautiful children. And today coaching my son's soccer team feels strangely emotional sometimes, because suddenly I realize, I become the adult that I once looked up to myself. Yeah, so children are an incredible source of joy and also an incredible source of logistical complexity. But that's what it is. And, now I'm at the point where, you know, everyone is somewhere, sometime at some point, and that is what's going to be next. I actually like the question more today than when I was younger. You know, because when you're young, you often think life should become clearer and clearer over time. But I think meaningful lives stay open, and you know, you have to be curious, and just be open to whatever this life has, you know, open for you. And if my story has one central message, maybe it's this: small opportunities can create enormous long-term consequences. A political change, a soccer club, a host family, a Rotary exchange year, a person who believes in you. You know, you never fully know which moment will change someone's trajectory. And yeah, so before I finish, I really want to say thank you. Thank you to Rotary. Thank you to everyone who supports exchange programs. Thank you for investing in young people. You know, because sitting here today is in many ways the long-term result of exactly that investment. And yeah, honestly, I don't really know what my life would have looked like without it. So thank you very much.